was out on his own. He chose to wander this world all alone. He said, heaven can't help me, I'm so far away from where they found me on that day. On and on he goes into the night, singing, waging war with demons in his mind, and he goes on.
In April 2018, KA-BAR Knives celebrated 120 years of business by producing a 45-minute documentary that covered KA-BAR's history. The documentary was released on YouTube, and although the overall response was positive, it did not garner as much attention as hoped.
When the documentary was released shortly after, I walked into John Stitt's office, our CEO, and I apologized. I said, hey, I'm sorry. I spent a lot of time, a lot of money working on this documentary, and it didn't do what I thought it was going to do. I was proud of the product, but there wasn't a lot of views to start. That was pretty discouraging.
Early April, May 2018, Joe comes in. The documentary hasn't done what he thinks it should do, but I was happy with the piece of work that came out of it. The time, the effort, what he put in, it captured everything that we wanted it to do, which was a documented, complete oral history of the KA-BAR story up to that point. What we had already spent and did on it, I was completely happy with. If it didn't get another view, not one more, I was fine.
I'd already started thinking about our next projects here at KA-BAR, and out of nowhere, the video popped.
Early 2019, Joe announces at a staff meeting that not sure what's going on, if algorithms had changed with how YouTube was sharing the video, but the video is gaining tens of thousands of views a day. There was a week, I believe, in that time period where it was like 100,000 views in a week it had gone up. So something had obviously changed, and this thing's now starting to just take off.
Along with the surge in views of the documentary, former employees of KA-BAR began to contact the company to share their stories and memories of KA-BAR.
The KA-BAR documentary kind of served as a catalyst for us to learn more about ourselves. It was amazing the stories that came out of the woodwork, the additional information that we found. Part of that was just how ingrained KA-BAR was in the Olean community. We had former employees reach out to us and tell us things we didn't know about the company beforehand, these first-person accounts, and it was pretty rewarding. You do realize it as a community. It's not just us, it's not just KA-BAR as a company, but there's a lot of people that make that happen and have stories and personal connections to KA-BAR.
The documentary helped put KA-BAR on track for an excellent year of growth. In 2019, KA-BAR struck a deal with Spartan Blades, a knife company in North Carolina, to create Pineland Cutlery.
So in 2018-19, we started talking with KA-BAR the possibility of a joint venture or doing something together. So we started looking at how that would work, the mechanics of it, legally. And we decided pretty quick and understood that we had to create a corporation in North Carolina in order to make that merge happen. So we were like, well, what are we going to call this thing? So we called it Pineland Cutlery. Now there's Pineland Cutlery in the name has a little bit of history. There's several counties around where we live where a special forces exercise called Robin Sage happens. And this fake country is actually called Pineland. And that's how the name Pineland Cutlery was formed. We added a small pine tree next to our logo as an indicator, like, hey, this is after teaming up with KA-BAR. It allows people to identify the knife and when it was made. So we take our manufacturing capability and reputation for quality, and we merged it with 120 years of manufacturing and history and put it together. So, and we don't take that lightly. We think it's really, really important. But what does that mean to the customer? Well, you get all those things included in your knife. You get manufacturing quality, you get history built in, and I think you're going to get something that's going to be an heirloom quality product that's going to last a lifetime.
The momentum from the documentary, the deal with Spartan Blades, and the creation of Pineland Cutlery came to a screeching halt in May of 2019.
KA-BAR is a distribution-based business. What that means is we tend to ship pallets of items, not necessarily one or two pieces here and there. The bulk of our business comes from distributors.
We sell it to a distributor. The distributor then sells it on to the end dealer or online dealer and sends it out to the end consumer. So a customer to us is somebody who buys multiple items from us in high quantities, and we ship them to them.
So in 2018, we started seeing a few of our smaller distributors either going out of business or starting to struggle. 2019, that really picked up momentum. Large distributors started going out of business at that point. The big issue with that is not only do they owe you a lot of money because they buy a lot of products, they also have a lot of your products.
You get an instance like this, banks are involved or creditors are now involved, they're looking at any tangible assets and what can they liquidate? Well, one of the things they can liquidate is inventory. So if they have your inventory and they know what they paid for it, a bank doesn't care about margin or pricing or who else has this product. They care about their money. So they see what it costs, they can sell it for that cost if they want. And then they're whole, dollar for dollar. Problem arises in that now it makes an artificial floor, new floor, for your price points, which upsets a lot of the market.
As a result, 2019 kind of ended on a downturn for us. Not only that, long term, the landscape had changed. We weren't really sure what this distribution model was going to look like. And going into 2020, we weren't really sure what the outlook was going to be.
With a large distributor now closed and inventory flooding the market for pennies on the dollar, there was a lot of uncertainty in the industry. But more difficulties would soon follow.
We have suppliers all over the world, and in October of 2019, a supplier in Asia had mentioned to us that there was some illness going around, and it probably wasn't a big deal though. In retrospect, it was a big deal.
December goes by, January goes by. There was no travel advisories, anything like that. We're going to Las Vegas for SHOT Show, like we do every January. And our international customers and our international vendors are all going to be there. We're shaking hands, we're hugging, we're greeting old friends, we're sharing stories. Nothing was out of the ordinary.
At SHOT Show, you get people from every part of the world. And there was a little bit of anxiety, but it didn't seem like anybody was really that concerned. Little did we know that was going to be the last business trip we would be taking for a while.
COVID-19 shut the world down for most of the spring and summer of 2020. Fear and uncertainty changed how businesses were run and caused many to never recover.
I remember watching the morning news like I always do, and things start getting canceled. Basketball games start getting shut down. I think it was an NBA game went first. Then they start canceling conference tournaments for NCAA basketball. By the end of that week, they had canceled school for our kids. This all happened in a matter of 6 days. So now it's coming into the following week. We're coming into work. This is like the 22nd of March. New York City's being ground zero now as cases just start spiking up all over the place. And we're managing this thing for the first couple days in like 4-hour blocks. Because whatever plan you put forward in the morning gets changed because there's a news conference with the governor and he says something new where whatever you plan for in the morning no longer can affect what you're going to do tomorrow from the afternoon. So you have another meeting and figure out what your next game plan was. By the next morning, that game plan's already scrapped. So you're meeting again. And it was just by the end of it, it was hour by hour. You're literally managing this hour by hour. And by the end of that week, it was businesses are shutting down.
April 2020, it was almost like someone flipped a switch. Everything came to a grinding halt. There wasn't people working in our factory. Really, much of the state of New York was closed for business. We got the order that we were gonna head out of the office, work from home for a little bit. It started off 1 to 2 weeks tops, and then it escalated from there. Then it became indefinitely. Wasn't really clear on when or if we would return to the office, any kind of timeline. Most businesses were closed down. A lot of restaurants were shuttered. So we continued to ship product, but we weren't making any new product. At the same time, we were getting just flooded with orders at that point as well, particularly with people being at home, doing a lot of online shopping, being scared. It was kind of a perfect storm for us in that the demand had never been greater, but we couldn't even make our product at that point.
If you did have essential services designation, then you could work with 25% of your headcount in the facility. So for us, we had 16 employees. That meant we could have 4. We needed a shipper. I had my plant manager. We had an accountant because we had to do the invoicing. And we needed someone to pack and pick. And that was me. I started in the warehouse when I was 19 years old here at KA-BAR, and I knew how to do it all, and I was pretty good at it. So I spent then the better part of the next 18 months packing boxes and picking orders, shipping. Typically, we like to have 3 to 4 months of every single product on the shelf in inventory. That 4 months of product lasted 6 weeks, and it was gone, all of it. And our factory was not open. They stayed shut down completely for the better part of 10 to 12 weeks and didn't produce a single knife.
In this time period where there was a lot of questions, not a lot of answers, really a lot of indecisiveness at various levels of our society, something that we could be proud of is that our company really stepped up. It started with our CEO, John Stitt. He was here every day, packing knife boxes, sending shipments out, making sure things were still running, that the business was still operational, that we kept things moving, and that we didn't leave anyone hanging.
I'm sure there's a long list of things we didn't do right when we scrutinize this, when we go back and look at it. But there was a lot of things we did do right. And one, first and foremost, keeping everybody whole, keeping all the employees whole. They knew you cared about them. People were scared. People were really scared. COVID did hit us here at work. We had loss. We had employees that had loss here, and it was real, and it was scary. And if you just happened to be one of the people that it decided that it was going to take down, it did it, and it did it fast, and it was not pretty. Even at the end of 2020, only half of our staff was working in the building. The other half was working from home. We had people that didn't step foot in this building for 10 months.
In the summer of 2020, the factory was reopened and started making products again.
The weird thing about doing business during COVID was the demand in our industry was never higher, but I bet more companies went out of business during this time period for us than in any other time period in the company's history, particularly the smaller shops. It was the surge in demand, yet they couldn't get product. And that wasn't just for KA-BAR, that was for every industry.
You would be in stock and inventory for 2 to 3 hours, and then immediately back out of stock again. As fast as we could get them all packed, they were in a box going back out the door to a customer. And that was every single day. So 2020 comes to a close. We're planning for 2021. First and foremost, everybody needs to come back to the office, period. We physically needed hands with product and boxes. And we knew we could gain that much more expertise in labor by just getting our people to come back in the office.
We knew at some point things would go back to a semblance of normalcy. We had no idea when that was going to be. We were dealing with the ramifications of over a year of just the logistical networks across the world being just destroyed. It was at that point, as 2021 went on, that we started to see the cost increase on everything from cardboard boxes to shipping fees to raw material costs. And it got to the point it was starting to become a weekly, if not daily, occurrence where we would see those increases. Not only were we seeing a price increase, it was just extreme shortages. The lead times grew dramatically, and we're still trying to fill this giant backlog from 2020 with with products.
Everybody did whatever they could. If they could handle 2 or 3 or 4 job functions, they did it. And that right there was, we had a great team here, and having that team willing to put the effort in that they did allowed us to grow going forward.
KA-BAR was able to take those sales from the previous 2 years and reinvest them back into the business, building an addition to their headquarters and updating many of their practices.
We added 10,000 square foot addition to our current building, which allowed us to put in new offices for every employee and a new shipping area. My mindset through all of this was, how do we build a better version of ourselves for whatever's next? And by investing back into the people in the business, that's where the next time that there's a downturn, that's how we're going to weather this, is we have now more options on what we can do.
KA-BAR also invested in their State and Union shop. This custom shop allowed KA-BAR to reconnect with the knife-making craft and to experiment with new designs.
With the investments that we made into the shop for going forward, it does allow us to get into specialty products that we can do in shorter runs and have more flexibility, where we don't have to do a huge product run of something to make a small, high-end version of it.
So in conjunction with our partnership with Spartan Blades, in the shop we created our first American-made folding knife in a long time, and that was our OSF folder.
Really what that knife was a bit of an experiment. It was done in very, very small, limited numbers. But what it allowed us to do is communicate and build branches of communication between us, our machinists, the manufacturing folks up there at KA-BAR. And we created a titanium folder. They sent folks here to sit down and work with us. So what it did is it kind of taught them our culture, and we, of course, barraged them with questions and learned about their culture. We sent folks up there to work with them. So that was kind of the beginning of looking at State and Union, figuring out how we could work together, identifying who's good at what and who's not, kind of meshing those things together to do some really neat things here in the future.
In 2021, KA-BAR also expanded its collection of historical items from the company's past.
In the summer of 2021, we were contacted by Dave Hornberg. He told us that he had some items we might be interested for the history of KA-BAR. He had quite a robust collection, and he also had the knowledge behind that collection as well. He had some context for it. It was just incredible to see some of these items, and for Dave also to share his knowledge with us.
I've always been a collector of Olean memorabilia in general, and I've been rotating Olean Historical Society president at the Bartlett House Museum in town here for the last 35 years. I think one of the first knives I collected was probably the World War II period naval diving knife. Saw the knife with a leather belt around it, and immediately became enthralled with that, and so I had to own one of those, and I've actually owned 2 or 3 of them over the years. I think it's important that my collection and others, specifically KA-BAR in this case, but any historic item has a life of its own that goes down through the generations, so people can understand our past, and the only way you can forge your future is to understand the past and where we came from as a community.
Throughout its 125-year history, KA-BAR has weathered many ups and downs and has continued as an American success story.
Something to reflect on is looking at the company history and the things that the Brown family went through and the storms that they weathered early on in the company's history, and what we just went through, not just as KA-BAR, but throughout the world. You build that resiliency, you build that preparation for anything that's thrown at you, and the good and the difficult times, and we had a lot of both of those over the last 5 years.
Last 5 years, they've been very interesting. It really has. It's probably the most interesting 5-year span that I've had in this business, to go through everything that we've gone through. There's moments it seems like it was 5 minutes ago, and there's moments it feels like it was 5 years ago. And there's no space or time sense to when things happened. It's really strange. It's the black hole of your career where just things disappeared. in 2020, 2021. To get back up and to be at a point where the company's as strong as it's ever been, the brand is stronger than it's ever been from this, the investments in the company are more than we've ever invested into the company. To set it up to succeed going forward, it's something I'm very grateful for.